The Galactic Conclave Station floated in the darkness of space like a jewel made of metal and light. It was the largest structure ever built by the combined efforts of 12 species, and it orbited a dying red star at the edge of known space. Here, the most powerful beings in the galaxy came to make peace, to trade, and to witness events that would shape history. Today was one such day, and every species had sent their finest representatives. The Emperor Dragons were coming. No species in the galaxy commanded more respect or more fear than the Emperor Dragons. They had existed for millions of years before any other intelligent life had crawled out of the mud of their home worlds. They were massive beyond imagination, wise beyond measure, and powerful beyond comprehension. A single Emperor Dragon could destroy a fleet of warships with one breath of cosmic fire. Their scales were harder than any metal, and their minds could crush the thoughts of lesser beings like paper. They rarely involved themselves in galactic politics. They watched from their ancient homeworld as younger species rose and fell like waves on a beach. But today, everything was different. Empress Virathax, the dragon matriarch who had ruled her kind for over 50,000 years, had made an announcement that shocked the galaxy. She would hatch her only egg at the Conclave Station. This had never happened before. Emperor dragons always hatched their young on their sacred homeworld, far from the eyes of other species. But Virathax wanted this hatching to be a symbol of unity and peace. She wanted to show that the dragons trusted the younger species. The station was filled beyond capacity. Diplomats from every corner of the galaxy had arrived. The tall and proud Crothian warriors stood in their gleaming armor, their forearms crossed over their broad chests. The Velnoxy empaths floated in their gravity bubbles, their transparent bodies glowing with soft colors. The Cytherian chemists clicked their mandibles in excitement, their compound eyes reflecting the lights of the Great Hall. The Brawl psychics sat in meditation, their third eyes pulsing with energy, and dozens of other species crowded every viewing platform and corridor. Ambassador Chen from Earth stood among them, though humans were considered a minor species in this great gathering. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 50 years ago, and they were still newcomers to the galactic stage. Most species barely noticed the small human delegation. They were too focused on the main event. In the center of the grand hatching chamber, surrounded by energy shields and protective barriers, sat the egg. The shell shimmered with colors that had no names in any language, and it pulsed with inner light like a heartbeat. The egg was as tall as 3 humans standing on each other's shoulders. Empress Virathax herself coiled around the chamber, her body so massive that it filled the entire space. Her scales were the color of deep space, scattered with points of light like stars. Her eyes, each one larger than a shuttlecraft, glowed with ancient wisdom and something else today, hope. The moment approaches. Her voice boomed through the chamber, though her mouth did not move. She spoke directly into the minds of all present. My child will be born into a galaxy of peace. Let this be the beginning of a new age. The crowd held their breath. The egg began to crack. Light poured from the breaks in the shell, and a sound like singing filled the air. The cracks spread, and pieces of shell fell away. Everyone leaned forward, eager to see the first Emperor Dragon born outside the homeworld in recorded history. Then something went wrong. The light from the egg turned from gold to angry red. The singing became a scream. The hatchling burst from the shell, and instead of the peaceful emergence everyone expected, there was chaos. The baby dragon was small compared to its mother, only about the size of a ground vehicle. But it radiated power that made the energy shields flicker. Its scales were not the peaceful colors of its mother, but rather the angry red and black of molten rock. Its eyes blazed with pain and fury. It screamed, and the scream was not just sound. It was psychic fire that slammed into every mind in the chamber. Diplomats collapsed. Warriors fell to their knees. The Velnoxy empaths fled in terror, their bodies flashing with distress colors. Even the mighty Crothian guards stumbled back. "My child!" Virathax's mental voice was filled with anguish. "What has happened to my child?" The scientists would later explain. During the journey through space, the egg had absorbed cosmic radiation from a nearby pulsar. This radiation had corrupted the hatchling's developing mind, filling it with uncontrollable rage and constant pain. The baby dragon was not evil, it was suffering, but its suffering manifested as destruction. The hatchling, who would later be named Calyrex, thrashed and roared. Waves of psionic heat melted the walls around it. Security teams tried to contain it, but their weapons were useless. 3 Crothian warriors were burned badly before the others retreated. A brawl psychic attempted to calm the creature's mind and was thrown across the chamber, unconscious. "Seal the chamber. Contain it." They managed to trap Calyrex behind emergency barriers, but the damage was done. The symbol of peace had become a symbol of disaster. The hatchling raged inside its prison, crying out in pain that no one could soothe. Empress Virathax lowered her great head in sorrow. By the ancient laws of her kind, a corrupted hatchling was a danger to all. Such a creature had to be silenced, destroyed, before it could grow into something that might threaten the galaxy. But this was her child, her only child. How could she give such an order? "There must be another way," she whispered into the minds of the gathered leaders. "Please, help my child." The galaxy's greatest minds began to work on the problem. But as hours passed and every attempt failed, hope faded. The angry cries of the hatchling echoed through the station, a constant reminder of tragedy. Far below, in the civilian quarters of the station, Ambassador Chen returned to her small room. She was exhausted from the emergency meetings. She looked at her 6-year-old son Marcus, who was playing with a toy spaceship on the floor. "Mommy, why is everyone so sad?" he asked. "Something bad happened, sweetheart," she said. "A baby got hurt, and no one knows how to help it." Marcus frowned. He did not like it when babies were hurt. He wished he could do something to help. He had no idea that soon he would. 3 days had passed since the hatching, and the Galactic Conclave Station had become a place of despair. The news had spread to every quarter of the galaxy. The Emperor Dragon hatchling was dangerous, unstable, and could not be saved. Species that had traveled across the stars to witness a moment of hope now gathered to mourn what could have been. The corridors were filled with whispers and sad faces. Inside the quarantine sector, behind energy shields and thick walls, the hatchling named Calyrex continued to rage. His cries echoed through the metal halls at all hours. Some said the sound was anger, but others thought it sounded like something else, like crying. The greatest minds of 12 species had tried everything to help the creature. The Velnoxy empaths had attempted to wrap Calyrex in waves of calm emotion. They were masters of feeling, able to soothe the most troubled minds in the galaxy. But when they reached out to the hatchling, his psychic fire burned their thoughts. 3 of them had to be carried away on stretchers, their minds temporarily broken by the contact. The Cytherian chemists had created special gases designed to calm aggressive creatures. They had pumped these chemicals into the quarantine chamber. Calyrex had simply burned the gases away with his breath, and the scientists had to flee when the chamber filled with toxic smoke. The Brawl psychics, known across the galaxy for their mental powers, had tried to enter the hatchling's mind and heal it from within. The strongest among them, a master who had lived for 300 years, had attempted the connection. He was now in the medical bay, unable to speak, his third eye dark and lifeless. The doctor said he might recover in a few months. Nothing worked. Every attempt ended in failure and injury. The council was running out of options. Ambassador Chen spent most of her time in meetings, trying to help find a solution, even though humans were not considered important enough to contribute. She felt sorry for the baby dragon, and for Empress Virathax, who had not eaten or slept since the hatching. The great dragon matriarch remained coiled in a chamber near her child, listening to his cries, unable to help. Marcus was left in the care of a Glorbaxian aide named Trelix. The Glorbaxians were kind creatures that looked like walking trees with gentle faces. Trelix was supposed to watch Marcus, but the aide was distracted by all the excitement on the station. Important meetings were happening everywhere, and Trelix kept wandering off to listen to news reports and gossip with other aides. Marcus did not mind. He was 6 years old and curious about everything. The station was huge and full of amazing things to see. There were aliens of every shape and size. There were windows that showed the stars. There were machines that made food appear from nothing. But today, Marcus heard something that made him stop playing with his toys. It was a sound coming from somewhere deep in the station. Most people heard it as a terrible roar that made them want to run away. But Marcus heard something different. To his young ears, it sounded like crying. It sounded like someone who was very, very sad. "Trelix?" Marcus called out. But the Glorbaxian had wandered off again to watch a news screen. Marcus thought for a moment. His mother had told him to stay in their quarters, but someone was crying, and Marcus did not like it when anyone cried. His mother always said that when someone was sad, you should try to help them feel better. He made a decision. He would find whoever was crying and try to help. The little boy walked out of his quarters and into the corridor. He followed the sound, which grew louder, as he went deeper into the station. The hallways here were bigger, built for species much larger than humans. Marcus felt very small, but he was not afraid. He was too focused on finding the sad voice. He passed through areas that should have been locked, but the doors had been damaged by recent events. Some of them had been built for much bigger creatures, so a small human boy could slip through gaps that no one had thought to secure. Security systems did not register him, because he was so small and gave off almost no heat compared to the larger species they were designed to track. Finally, Marcus reached the quarantine sector. Warning signs in a dozen languages covered the walls, but Marcus could not read most of them. He only knew English, and the English signs had been burned away by earlier incidents. He walked down a long corridor until he reached a large chamber. The walls were scorched and melted in places. Emergency barriers flickered with unstable energy. And behind those barriers was the source of the crying, Calyrex. The hatchling was curled in the corner of the chamber, his scales glowing with angry heat. He looked like a creature made of fire and shadow. His eyes blazed with pain. When he saw Marcus, he snarled and rose to his full height. The sound he made should have sent any creature running. It was a roar filled with psychic power that had driven away the bravest warriors in the galaxy. Marcus tilted his head to one side. He did not feel the psychic attack, because human minds work differently. Humans had no psionic receptors. They could not feel the mental fire that burned other species. To Marcus, the hatchling was just making a loud noise. "Why are you so sad?" Marcus asked. Calyrex stopped. No one had ever asked him that. No one had ever stayed long enough to ask anything. Every creature he had seen had run away screaming. But this tiny being was just standing there, looking at him with big, curious eyes. The hatchling roared again, louder this time. Marcus did not move. "My mom says that when people are angry, it means something hurts inside them," he said. "Does something hurt inside you?" At that moment, the energy barrier flickered one last time and failed completely. There was nothing between Marcus and the dragon. Calyrex lunged forward with claws that could tear through metal. He stopped inches from the boy's face, confused and unsure. This creature was not afraid. Why was this creature not afraid? Marcus smiled and reached out his small hand toward the dragon's snout. "It's okay," he said. "I'm Marcus. Do you want to be friends?" Above them, unseen by either, security cameras recorded everything. Alarms began to sound throughout the station. Ambassador Chen screamed her son's name and began to run. Guards mobilized from every direction, but none of them would arrive in time to stop what happened next. Calyrex did not understand what was happening. Since the moment he had broken free from his shell, his entire existence had been pain and fire. His mind burned with rage that he could not control. Every thought was agony. Every feeling was too intense. When he looked at other creatures, all he could sense was their fear, and that fear made his pain worse. Every being had run from him. The tall warriors with 4 arms had stumbled back in terror. The floating glowing creatures had fled so fast they crashed into walls. The ones with 3 eyes had screamed inside their minds before collapsing. Even his own mother, the great and ancient Virathax, kept her distance because his psychic fire hurt her too. He was alone. He was in pain, and everyone was afraid of him. But this tiny creature was different. Marcus stood before Calyrex with no fear in his eyes. The boy's mind was strange. Calyrex could not feel it at all. It was like trying to grab smoke. His psychic fire passed right through the boy, without causing any reaction. The child just stood there smiling, with his small hand reaching toward the dragon's snout. "It's okay," Marcus said again. "I won't hurt you." Calyrex had never heard those words before. He had never imagined that any creature would say them to him. He was the one who hurt others. He was the dangerous one. He was the monster that everyone feared. But this boy was promising not to hurt him. Something inside the hatchling cracked, and it was not a bad kind of breaking. It was like a wall falling down. It was like a door opening. For just a moment, the rage that filled his mind grew quieter. Marcus's small hand touched Calyrix's snout. The scales there were hot enough to burn metal. They glowed with inner fire. Any other creature would have been injured instantly, but human skin was strange and tough in ways that nobody had expected. Marcus felt warmth, yes, but not burning. It was like touching a cup of hot chocolate, warm but not painful. "You're so warm," Marcus said happily, "like a big heater." Calyrex felt the touch, and something amazing happened. For the first time since his birth, he felt warmth that did not burn. He felt contact that did not cause fear. He felt connection. The raging fire inside him began to calm. High above, in the observation decks, dozens of scientists and diplomats watched through cameras with their mouths hanging open. They had expected to see the human child burned to ashes. They had expected tragedy. Instead, they were witnessing something impossible. "What is happening?" a Crothian general demanded. A Cytherian scientist clicked rapidly as it studied its instruments. "The hatchling's psychic output is decreasing. The readings are dropping fast." "But how?" asked a Velnoxi empath. "We tried everything. Our best efforts only made it worse." A human scientist named Dr. Sarah Wong pushed forward to look at the data. She was one of the few humans allowed in the observation room, and only because she had specialized in xenobiology. "I think I understand," she said. "Humans don't have psionic receptors. We evolved on a world with no psychic species. Our brains simply cannot receive or transmit mental energy." "So the boy cannot feel the psychic fire?" the Velnoxi asked. "Exactly. To everyone else, approaching that hatchling means experiencing its pain directly. Your minds connect automatically, and its suffering becomes your suffering. That's why everyone runs, not just from physical danger, but from the mental agony. But the human child feels nothing. Nothing psychic, no. He just sees a baby dragon. He doesn't feel the rage or the pain, and because he doesn't feel fear, he doesn't add to the hatchling's distress. Every time one of us approached with fear, we made things worse. But this boy has no fear to project. Down in the chamber, Marcus was now petting Calyryx's snout with both hands. The dragon had lowered his head to the ground, and his eyes were half closed. The glow of his scales was changing, shifting from angry red to a deep, peaceful blue. There, Marcus said, using the words his mother used when he was upset. It's okay, you're going to be okay. Calyryx made a sound that no one in the observation room recognized. It was low and rumbling, almost like a cat's purr, but deeper and more powerful. The scientists frantically searched their databases. That sound, Dr. Wong exclaimed. According to ancient dragon records, that's a bonding vocalization. It hasn't been documented in over 10,000 years. What does it mean? Someone asked. Before Dr. Wong could answer, a new presence entered the observation room. The air grew heavy, and everyone stepped back in respect and awe. Empress Virathax had arrived. Her physical body was too large to fit in the room, but her mind filled the space. She looked through the eyes of a small drone that floated near the ceiling, watching her child and the human boy. Tears fell from the Empress's distant eyes, tears of liquid starlight that floated in zero gravity like diamonds. He is purring, Virathax said, her mental voice thick with emotion. My son is purring. That sound is made only when a dragon finds their heart bonded, their eternal companion. Eternal companion? Ambassador Chen had just arrived, out of breath from running. She looked at the screen showing her son sitting next to the now calm dragon. What does that mean? Emperor dragons bond once in their lifetime, Virathax explained. When we find the one soul that completes us, we bond with them forever. It is the most sacred connection my kind can make. And my son has chosen yours. Ambassador Chen's face went pale. But Marcus is just a child. He's just a little boy. And Calyryx is just a hatchling. They will grow together, they will learn together, and they will be connected across any distance, through any hardship, for as long as they both live. On the screen, Marcus had sat down next to Calyryx. The dragon had curled his body around the boy protectively, like a cat curling around a precious treasure. Both of them looked peaceful and content. Mommy will be worried, Marcus said to his new friend. But I'll come back to visit you, okay? I promise. Calyryx made the purring sound again, and gently bumped his snout against Marcus's chest. I think that means yes, Marcus laughed. The observation deck was silent. Crothian warriors who had faced death without flinching wiped tears from their eyes. Velnoxi empaths glowed with colors of joy and wonder. Even the serious Sci-Farian scientists made clicking sounds of happiness. A human child had done what the greatest minds in the galaxy could not. Not with technology, not with power, not with ancient knowledge, but with something much simpler. With kindness, with compassion, with a gentle touch and a promise to be friends. Ambassador Chen watched her son through the screen, and she felt two things at once. She felt pride in the wonderful boy she had raised, and she felt the weight of knowing that everything had just changed. For Marcus, for humanity, and for the entire galaxy. The news spread across the galaxy faster than any ship could travel. Within hours of Marcus calming the Emperor Dragon hatchling, every news network in known space was telling the story. Images of the small human boy petting the fearsome creature played on screens from the core worlds to the outer rim. Everyone was talking about what had happened at the Conclave station. Human child saves dragon heir, announced the Crothian news networks. The boy who knew no fear, declared the Velnoxi broadcasts. Miracle at the Conclave, humanity's moment, shouted the Earth channels. For the first time in their short history among the stars, humans were at the center of galactic attention. This made many species uncomfortable. In the dark halls of the Crothian High Command, generals gathered to discuss what this meant. The Crothians had been the military power of the galaxy for thousands of years. They were strong, they were proud, and they were worried. "The dragons have ignored us for 10,000 years, growled General Varketh, his forearms crossed. "We have built the greatest fleet in the galaxy, and they never even looked at us. Now a human infant waves his hand, and suddenly the dragons are interested?" "This could upset the balance of power," agreed another general. "If the dragons ally with humanity, everything changes." They were right to be concerned. The Emperor Dragons had stayed neutral in every conflict, every war, every political struggle. Their power was so great that any side they supported would instantly become unstoppable. For this reason they had chosen to support no one. But now, a bond had formed. An Emperor Dragon hatchling, the only child of the Empress herself, had connected with a human. This was unprecedented. Similar meetings were happening all across the galaxy. The Valnoxy councils debated. The Scytharian hives calculated. The Brawl monasteries meditated on the meaning of these events. Every species wanted to know what would happen next. The answer came 3 days later. Empress Virathax requested a formal audience with Ambassador Chen. The word requested sent shockwaves through diplomatic circles. Virathax was older than most civilizations. She had been ancient when the Crothians were still learning to make fire. She did not request things. She announced, she declared, she commanded. But she did not request. Until now. The meeting was held in a chamber that had been quickly built to accommodate both dragons and humans. Empress Virathax coiled her enormous body in the center, her scales glittering with the light of distant stars. Ambassador Chen stood before her, trying not to show how nervous she was. Beside her stood Marcus, who was much less nervous and kept waving at Calyrex. The young dragon was there too, sitting calmly near his mother. His scales now showed healthy colors of blue and silver, and his eyes were bright but peaceful. Every few seconds he made a small, happy sound in Marcus's direction. "Ambassador Chen of Earth," Virathax began, her mental voice gentle but powerful. "Your son has given me a gift beyond measure. He has saved my child when all others failed. He has shown compassion when the galaxy showed only fear." Ambassador Chen bowed respectfully. "My son only did what any kind person would do, Your Majesty. He saw someone in pain and wanted to help." "And that," Virathax said, "is exactly why humanity is special." The Empress lowered her great head until one of her enormous eyes was level with Marcus. The boy giggled and reached out to touch the scales near her eye. Any other being would have been too terrified to move, but Marcus just saw another friend to pet. "Little one," Virathax said softly to Marcus, "do you understand what has happened?" Marcus thought about it. "I made friends with Calyrex." "Yes, but it is more than that. Calyrex has bonded with you. In our culture, this is the most sacred connection. It means that your hearts are linked across all distances. When you are happy, he will feel joy. When you are sad, he will feel sorrow. You are part of each other now." "Like best friends forever?" Marcus asked. Virathax made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Yes, little one, like best friends forever." She raised her head and addressed Ambassador Chen once more. "For 10,000 years, my kind has watched the younger species struggle and grow. We have stayed apart because we feared our power would disrupt the natural balance. But your son has shown us that we were wrong to stay so distant." "What do you mean, Your Majesty?" "Humanity has something that no other species possesses. Not technology, not weapons, not psychic power. You have the ability to connect with anyone, to feel compassion for any being, to see friends where others see monsters. This is a rare and precious gift." Virathax spread her wings, filling the chamber with their shadow. "In recognition of this gift, and in gratitude for saving my child, I offer humanity the greatest honor my kind can bestow. Every diplomat watching through the broadcast feeds leaned forward. I offer humanity full protection under the Dragon Accords. Any attack on a human world will be considered an attack on the Dragon homeworld. Any enemy of humanity will be an enemy of my kind. Ambassador Chen's legs went weak. This was beyond anything she had imagined. No species protected by the dragons had ever been invaded or threatened. But Virathax was not finished. I also offer humanity access to the Dragon Archives. Millions of years of knowledge, science, history, and wisdom. Your kind will learn in decades what others took millennia to discover. Your Majesty, this is too much, Ambassador Chen managed to say. We cannot possibly repay such generosity. I ask for only one thing in return, Virathax said. I ask that your son be allowed to visit my son, that they be allowed to be friends, that Marcus help Calyrex heal and grow. Ambassador Chen looked down at Marcus, who was now playing a clapping game with Calyrex's tail. The dragon was making happy rumbling sounds while trying to tap the boy's hands with the tip of his tail. You want us to let them play together? She asked. I want them to be companions, to grow together, to show the galaxy that bonds between species can be stronger than bonds of politics or power. Across the galaxy, beings of every kind watched and waited. The Crothian generals sat in tense silence. The Velnoxi held their breath. History was being made. Ambassador Chen knelt down next to her son. Marcus, would you like to visit Calyrex sometimes? To play with him and be his friend? Marcus's face lit up with the brightest smile. Yes. Can he come to my birthday party? Can we play spaceship together? Does he like ice cream? Laughter rippled through the observation galleries. Even the serious diplomats could not help but smile. Ambassador Chen stood and faced the Dragon Empress. Your Majesty, on behalf of humanity, I accept your generous offer. And I personally promise that Marcus will be the best friend Calyrex could ever have. Virathax dipped her head in the dragon equivalent of a smile. Then, let this be the beginning of a new age. Let it be known, across all worlds, that humanity and dragons stand together. The announcement sent shockwaves through the galaxy. Everything had changed. A species that had been overlooked and underestimated was suddenly one of the most important in known space. 5 years had passed since the day that changed the galaxy. Marcus was 11 years old now, taller and a bit less chubby, but still the same kind and curious boy he had always been. His hair was messy, because no matter how many times his mother combed it, it always ended up sticking out in every direction. He wore the special ambassador uniform that had been made just for him, dark blue with silver trim and a small dragon symbol on his chest. Today was a special day. Marcus was visiting the Dragon homeworld for the unveiling of the new human dragon embassy, the first building ever allowed to be constructed by another species on the ancient planet. He stood on a platform high above a valley filled with dragons of every size. Some were ancient, their scales faded with age, their eyes holding wisdom beyond counting. Others were young and energetic, flying in formations overhead. And beside the platform, coiled like a mountain made of living silver and blue, was Calyrex. The hatchling had grown. He was no longer the small, angry creature that Marcus had first met. Calyrex was now the size of a large spacecraft, his scales shimmering with healthy colors, his eyes bright with intelligence and warmth. He had become one of the most beautiful dragons many had ever seen. But he was still the same friend Marcus had made in that quarantine chamber. He still purred when Marcus petted his snout. He still made happy sounds when they played together. And he still curled protectively around the human boy whenever they were together. Their bond had grown stronger over the years. Though they lived on different worlds, They could feel each other across the stars. When Marcus was happy at school, Caelorix felt a warm glow in his chest. When Caelorix flew through the clouds of his home world, Marcus dreamed of soaring. They were connected in ways that even the dragon scholars did not fully understand. The galaxy had changed because of their friendship. Humanity was no longer overlooked. With dragon protection and access to the dragon archives, human civilization had advanced faster than anyone had predicted. New colonies spread across dozens of worlds. Human scientists made discoveries that amazed even the oldest species. Human diplomats helped solve conflicts that had lasted for centuries. But more than technology and power, humanity had brought something else to the galaxy, the same thing that Marcus had brought to Caelorix. Kindness, compassion, the ability to see potential friends instead of enemies. Human ambassadors had helped the Crothians and Velnoxi sign a peace treaty after 2,000 years of tension. Human doctors had traveled to worlds struck by disease, caring for species that looked nothing like them. Human teachers had established schools where young beings of all kinds could learn together. Songs were sung across 1,000 worlds about the boy who had petted the angry dragon. Stories were told to children at bedtime about how kindness could change everything. Marcus and Caelorix had become symbols of hope. But not everyone was happy with this new galaxy. Some powers had benefited from the old ways. Some had grown strong by keeping others weak. And some were willing to do terrible things to return to those days. The attack came without warning. Marcus was speaking to the crowd, thanking everyone for coming to the embassy opening, when energy blasts exploded against the platform's shields. Screams filled the air as figures in dark armor appeared from hidden positions. Assassins from a coalition of species that hated the changes humanity had brought. "Kill the human," their leader shouted. "Break the bond. Destroy everything they have built." The dragon guards moved to respond, but the assassins had planned well. Devices that disrupted dragon abilities activated across the valley, causing confusion and pain among the great creatures. The attackers had spent years preparing for this moment. 3 armored figures broke through the chaos and charged toward Marcus. Their weapons were designed to kill quickly, and they were trained to use them. In seconds, they would reach the boy. They never got the chance. Caelorix moved faster than anyone thought possible. Despite the disruption devices, despite the pain they caused him, the young dragon threw himself between the assassins and Marcus. Energy blasts meant for the boy struck Caelorix's scales instead, leaving burn marks on his beautiful hide. "Caelorix, no!" Marcus cried out. The dragon wrapped his body around his human friend, creating a living shield. More blasts struck him, and he roared in pain. But he did not move. He would not let them touch Marcus. "You cannot protect him forever, beast," the assassin leader laughed, raising a weapon designed to pierce dragon scales. "We will finish this." But Caelorix was not just protecting. The young dragon raised his head, his eyes blazing with something that was not the corrupted rage of his birth. This was different. This was the righteous fury of someone defending the person they loved most. This was the fire that warms rather than destroys. He opened his mouth and unleashed a stream of cosmic flame. It was not wild or uncontrolled like the fire of his painful first days. It was focused, precise, and devastatingly powerful. The assassins who had come to kill his friend were turned to ash in an instant. Their disruption devices melted, their careful plans became nothing. The attack had failed. Caelorix lowered his head and nuzzled Marcus gently, checking to make sure his friend was unharmed. Marcus hugged the dragon's snout, tears streaming down his face. "You're hurt," Marcus sobbed, looking at the burn marks on his friend's scales. "They hurt you." And then something happened that made the entire galaxy hold its breath. Caelorix spoke. Emperor dragons took many years to develop the ability to speak. Most did not say their first words until they were much older than Calyrex. But the bond with Marcus had changed him, had helped him grow in ways that no dragon had grown before. His voice was deep and powerful, like thunder rolling across mountains. But the words he spoke were in perfect English, the language his best friend had taught him. "He is my human," Calyrex declared, his voice echoing across the valley and broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. "Harm him, and learn why the stars themselves fear our flame." The words became legend instantly. Across the galaxy, those who had thought about opposing humanity reconsidered. Those who had hoped the human-dragon alliance would fail lost that hope. And those who had believed in the power of friendship and compassion felt their hearts swell with pride. In the days that followed, the attackers' coalition fell apart. Their leaders were captured and brought to justice. And the galaxy became more united than ever, drawn together by the story of a boy and his dragon. A month later, Marcus and Calyrex stood together at the completed human-dragon embassy. The building was beautiful, combining human architecture with dragon artistry. It stood as a symbol of everything their friendship had built. Marcus, now a young man in the eyes of both species, reached up to place his hand on Calyrex's snout, just as he had done 5 years ago in that quarantine chamber. "Do you remember when we first met?" Marcus asked. Calyrex purred, that ancient sound that spoke of eternal bonds. "I remember everything. I remember the pain and the fear. I remember how everyone ran away, and I remember the small human who asked me why I was sad. I just wanted to help. I know. That is why I love you, my friend. You did not see a monster. You saw someone who needed kindness, and that changed everything." Around them, diplomats and scientists and beings of every species watched the two friends. Many had tears in their eyes. Some recorded the moment to share with their worlds. Empress Virathax watched from above, her ancient heart full of joy. Her son, once corrupted by pain, was now healthy and strong and loved. And humanity, once overlooked by the galaxy, had earned their place among the stars. She spoke, her mental voice reaching every mind in attendance. "Let this moment be remembered forever. Let it be known that the greatest power in the galaxy is not in weapons or fleets or psychic abilities. The greatest power is compassion. The greatest strength is kindness. And the greatest victory is making a friend of someone the universe told you to fear." Marcus smiled up at Calyrex, and the dragon smiled back in his own way. Across the galaxy, a new saying had spread, words that would be remembered for generations to come. "Never underestimate humanity. They will pet your monsters and make them family." And as the twin suns of the dragon homeworld set in colors of gold and purple, a boy and his dragon watched together, proof that love could change everything, and that sometimes the smallest hand could calm the mightiest flame.